Thank you and welcome everyone to this very special presentation. Let me begin by saying that IQVIA MedTech is honored to be associated with AdvaMed and privileged to sponsor and be able to present the association's Lifetime Achievement Award. AdvaMed's Lifetime Achievement Award recognizes an individual who has had a monumental impact and a lasting influence on the medical technology industry. Candidates for the award must have demonstrated industry leadership with activities and actions that have had an impact far beyond their own company, employees, products, and the patients they serve. This award recognizes industry pioneers and champions with sustained activity in areas such as leadership, innovation, discovery, commercialization, entrepreneurship, philanthropy, capital formation, and lasting contributions to the medical technology industry as a whole. These are legends of our industry, individuals who inspire us by their example to be the best we can be. Previous award recipients are Stryker Emeritus Chairman John Brown, Medtronic co-founder Earl Bakken, cardiovascular surgeon, innovator, and entrepreneur Dr. Thomas Fogarty, Boston Scientific's co-founders John Abeli and Pete Nicholas, Beckman Coulter's former chairman and CEO Jack Wareham, Baxter's former chairman and CEO Vern Lukes, and most recently, KCI's former CEO Kathy Berzik. Today, we add another legend to this esteemed group of Lifetime Achievement Award winners. To learn more about the 2020 AdvaMed Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, I ask that you please direct your attention to the tribute video.
Ronald Dollens formed the foundation of his people-centric management style as a teenager, working at his father's grocery store. It was on their rides to work that he and his father would have deep and impactful conversations about what he called the non-negotiable values of integrity, honesty, and respect. Those three values drove his success over a career that spanned nearly 4 decades in the medical technology industry.
Ron is a very unique individual. He has incredibly high expectations. There was no moon too far away for us to reach for. He had incredible loyalty for people who worked for the company and a passion for patients, a passion for excellence that was unparalleled, and he believed the best in everybody.
Dollens grew up next to his grandfather's farm in rural Indiana and earned his BS in pharmacy from Purdue University and his master's in marketing from Indiana University. Growing up, he was always aware of the presence of the healthcare company Eli Lilly in nearby Indianapolis. During college, he landed a summer job shoveling coal at Lilly and knew then that it was a company he wanted to work for after college. That dream became a reality, and a job as a sales rep in 1972 for Eli Lilly in Toledo, Ohio, was the beginning of an illustrious career as a leader in the medical technology industry. Dollens quickly climbed through the ranks, holding many positions at Eli Lilly over the years. In 1987, he became CEO for Lilly subsidiary Advanced Cardiovascular Systems, known for its angioplasty technologies. Shortly thereafter, he was named President and CEO of the Medical Devices and Diagnostics Division of Eli Lilly, where he was responsible for business development and technology acquisitions. When Lilly's Medical Device and Diagnostics Division businesses were spun off to form Guidant in 1994, Dollens was appointed CEO. Guidant pioneered cutting-edge cardiac devices, such as the internal defibrillator used to shock erratic heart rhythms back into place, the multi-link stent, and catheters used to treat patients with coronary artery disease. Products that revolutionized treatment for cardiac patients, saving lives and improving quality of life for millions around the world.
Ron, in particular, was a strong supporter of innovation. So as an inventor, This was something that was so important to me, to be able to discuss new ideas and to have them appreciated by someone of Ron's position as CEO of the company. So the ability to simply insert the perfusion balloon catheter and immediately restore blood flow. I saw so many patients that were literally writhing on the table with chest pain immediately just relax and be completely pain-free after their blood flow was reestablished. And that was a dramatic example. Patients around the world and their families largely have Ron to thank for their well-being and even saving their lives from major contributions in both interventional cardiology and electrophysiology.
Under Dollens' leadership, Guidant sales grew from $862 million to $1.9 billion in just 4 years. But that wasn't the only growth that took place during the time he was at the helm of the Fortune 500 company. Ron was known for growing and mentoring executives, many of whom would move on to leadership roles in medical technology companies across the world.
Probably the most important legacy with Ron and his career has been all the people that he hired, the people that he developed. He had a keen focus on making sure you had the right folks on the bus. He also empowered individuals, and we all learned a lot from that. And that focus on the people and really creating a meritocracy and encouraging sort of a diversity of thought and opinions, styles, all typical forms of diversity like gender and ethnicity. He was real leader in that area well before it became sort of popular, if you will.
We had the most diverse medical device company in the world. We had women, people of color, people of all walks of life and from all over the world. Diversity was present in every level of the company, from the board to the management committee and all the way down. And it was recognized that if you were a person who was diverse in any way, if you wanted the best opportunity in the industry, Guidant was the place to go.
In addition to leading Guidant, Dollens worked to advance the industry overall with a keen focus on public policy issues. As chairman of the Industry Trade Association, AdvaMed, and in other forums, he advocated for policies to ensure timely patient access to medical technologies, promote the viability of healthcare providers, and foster a better understanding of and investment in medical device innovation.
He had the insight and the vision to say, look, we've got to kind of control our own destiny or someone else will. He put together an office in Washington and had a very strong team of people that worked to educate policymakers on the value of medical technology.
Dollens retired as CEO of Guidant in 2005, before the company was acquired in a $27 billion transaction. Since retiring, he has remained active in the industry, serving on the boards of many medtech companies and universities, and is the past chairman of the board of Kinetic Concepts and Avanos Medical.
The American dream says work hard and you can achieve it, regardless of where you start. Ron Dollens certainly embodies that ideal. He started out shoveling coal in college as a summer job and moved his way up and found himself as CEO of a big medtech company. But Ron didn't climb the corporate ladder for the sake of climbing. He did it so he could be in the best possible spot to help others. Just look at the story behind one of his first investments, the implantable defibrillator. Everyone said it was too risky, but Ron knew, I believe, it was worth a shot because it would save lives. Now you fast forward until today, and more than 1 million Americans are now living with ICDs. I think that story tells you everything you need to know. Ron has transformed patient care for the better, and that's what the Lifetime Achievement Award is all about.
Well, thank you, Bhavik. It's most appropriate that you mention the corporation on the award that was presented. And the reason for that is obvious, I think, to each of us, that, you know, unless you're going to be an inventor, a professional athlete, or something very similar to that, you're going to have to get all your work done with and through individuals. And the 12,000 people in our corporation took great pride in the fact that every 20 seconds, one of our products was used somewhere in the world for life-changing events and hopefully a whole continuous time of care. So from my own perspective, my senior management and the employee owners of Guidant Corporation, we just thank you so much for the recognition. You know, old mentor of mine, and I really wasn't that much older than I am, but anyway, a mentor of mine said early on in our careers that the psychic income of being in this business is just incredible. And he was mostly, I think, thinking about patients and how our innovations impacted patients' lives, and how there was very few things that were much more exhilarating than that. And when we think of patients, many of us had the chance to watch our products used in the labs with the dedicated clinical staffs. Most of our product development people did, engineering staff, PhDs, our field organization obviously did, but we had thousands of people in the plants, in the organization, doing incredibly important work, and they had to get the stories from us. So anyway, it's an incredible experience listening to patients and trying to get their insight in terms of the importance of the contribution of these people. And as we all know, before the patients can happen, before the customers can be called on, whether the clinical or providers, payers, it's all about, we've got to have the staff, these employee owners within the corporation that truly get the work done. But there are also people in our organization that really do get a thrill about innovation. They get a thrill about novel ideas. They get a thrill about technology applications, and it is also a great sense of accomplishment. So in the past, and it's been tainted a little bit recently, but in the past and during this period, we used to say at Guidant as a kind of byline to the brand, it's a great time to be alive. Now, as a clinician pointed to me one day as we were making a presentation, said, you know, most any day is a great day to be alive. And I said, no, I have to agree with that. But it was a great day to be in medtech, and it was a great time to be in medtech. And the reason for that is there is this great, and it's ebbs and flows. There is this great ecosystem of innovation. You see, most people in this room know what that looks like, but just to articulate it, when individuals have novel ideas and they think that they're not being pursued by others, and they think they could be clinically important and or economically relevant, then they end up trying to pursue those ideas themselves. So with those observations, I would say, again, thank you to AdvaMed, thank you to recognizing the people within our organization doing the work that they do. And I hope everyone else that's in this business understands the exhilaration that comes with it and protects the business models that have been so successful. So with that, again, thank you from the senior management of the organization, as well as the employees of Guidant Corporation.
Thank you for joining us for a panel discussion with our 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Ron Dollens, retired President and CEO of Guidant Corporation. My name is Larry Ferrara, and I'm a member of the IQVIA MedTech Global Tech Center of Excellence leadership team. And it's an honor for IQVIA to sponsor the Lifetime Achievement Award. My pleasure to join you and our distinguished panel for today's discussion. Please allow me to introduce the panel of executives, along with Ron, who will join us for the next 30 minutes. First, we're grateful to have Maria Sains, President CEO of AgVMed Medical. Maria is a former Guidant and Boston Scientific executive after beginning her career as a talented analyst. Second, we have Joe Woody, CEO of Avanos. Until recently, Ron served as Avanos chairman of the board. Maria is also currently serves on the Avanos board. We're also fortunate to be joined today by John Kapik, Executive Vice President of Abbott Ventures. John held various senior management positions at Guidant Corporation, and like Ron, began his career at Eli Lilly. Those of you that just heard the formal award presentation and tribute video from Ron's colleagues about Ron's lifetime achievement, acceptance comments, and know that he's extremely deserving of this award recognition. He joins an elite and distinguished group of medtech leaders to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award. Let me give you an abbreviated summary on Ron, just in case you missed the earlier award segment. Ron rose up at Eli Lilly from sales rep to president of their medical device and diagnostic division. When Lilly spun out its medtech business, Ron was named CEO of the newly created Guidant Corporation. Recognized as one of the world's foremost manufacturers of medical devices for heart and artery-related disorders, Guidant was recognized as virtually creating the interventional cardiology business and having a significant impact on cardiac rhythmic management. I've heard the stories of innovation and the patents that line the walls at Guidant, and the medical breakthrough technologies that include multi-link stent and the implantable defibrillator. Under Ron's leadership, Guidant saw a 10-year, 20-fold increase in market capitalization. Just amazing. Guidant was recognized by Businessweek as one of the 50 best companies on the S&P 500, by Elite Ethics as one of the nation's 100 best corporate citizens, and by Fortune as one of the 100 best companies to work for in America. Guidant's impact and advancements culminated in the 2006 acquisition for more than $25 billion. In addition to Ron's civic leadership, he also served the industry on numerous technology and venture advisory boards, including Arboretum Ventures, Centerfield Capital Partners, and 3i Global Venture Capital, and on the board of directors of Beckman Coulter, Biomed, chairman of the board for KCI and Avanos, and AdvaMed's chairman. What an honor it is to be here with you, Ron. Thank you so much, and congratulations again on being the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. We'll jump right into the panel now, and let me throw the first question to John, because I believe, John, you've got the longest working history with Ron, working closely with him at Guidant. What did you think when you heard that Ron was receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award, and what would you say about Ron's accomplishments to someone that has no knowledge of his contribution to our industry?
Well, I thank you, Larry, and it is true. I've been fortunate enough to know Ron for my entire 33 now years in medtech, from my start with Lilly in '87 through the 10 years of Guidant and now 14 years at Abbott. And when I heard of Ron receiving this award, I couldn't have thought of a better choice. It's hard to sum up Ron's accomplishments and contributions in a short few sentences and words, but I'll do my best. And I'd have to say, most important was Ron's passionate leadership, his mentorship, and the example he set in terms of what it takes to be success in medtech. And we'll talk about many of the products that were developed under Ron's watch, but he taught all of us and led by example to demonstrate that it's not just the product, it's and the impact that it has on patients, which is truly an absolutely critical factor. But it's also about the partnerships you create with physicians to develop procedures. It's the partnerships you create with healthcare systems to ensure adequate reimbursement. But most importantly, to allow that product to have some legs, to go beyond first generation, the importance of creating an organization of people and a culture and a spirit of innovation, which allows first gen products to not only be significant in coming in and transforming a market, but to create a legacy of products that move like the multi-link through 9 generations of stents, or the implantable defibrillator through now more than a decade's worth of innovation, and that it's the people that come into an organization and the passion of those people to be innovative that truly defines success. And I think Ron brought that not only in his personality, but brought that to all of us that had the pleasure of working with him.
That's great. You mentioned mentorship. Maria, I'm going to come to you. you worked with him a very long time, from the early days throughout your career to your rise as president CEO. I think Ron was also named Healthcare Mentor of the Year in 2003. So that mentorship, clearly came out in a lot of the conversations I've heard about Ron. Can you share a story or an example of how Ron mentored and influenced people's careers?
Sure, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think it took me a while to figure out that Ron was that stellar mentor, and I would say I think Ron is the mentor behind the scenes. I think we've heard over the course of all of the different interventions here the word talent very often, and I want to go back to how Guidant looked at talent, and I think Ron must have been behind not the assessment around performance, but more about the assessment around potential. And I think he encouraged his management team to find those people that showed the potential to accomplish above and beyond. And he was eager and keen on putting people through what I would call stretch assignments as a way to have individuals test themselves what the limits of your capabilities were. And often enough, these assignments came out of left field, and it felt like, really, me now, what? But the long of it is that they had a purpose, and I believe the engine behind a lot of that was really the way Ron set the tone for talent development, the emphasis on it, the how it was accomplished, and whether you were changing business units or changing geographies. John and I worked together in Germany. Then we worked together in the US across different businesses. It was a way to really push people to accomplish above and beyond what you could have hoped or guessed you were capable of. And that was all sort of a little bit of a master plan that I strongly believe came out of Ron's tone at the top around talent development.
That's great. Hey, Joe, I know that your career path crossed Ron's later in your respective careers. I think it was after Ron actually retired from Guidant, was serving on various boards director, and was the AdvaMed board chairman. Could you talk a little bit about the value he brought to you and to your board and to board meetings?
Yeah, it was a tremendous value. In fact, Ron formed our board first as independent lead director and then the independent chairman. Because of his leadership and I think his reputation, he became the anchor tenant, as we finally called him, and he was able to recruit a very powerful board of CEOs and CFOs in the medical device industry. Some were not, and also equally strong. Maria is one of those CEOs. The perfect chairman, I think, for a divestiture and a spin out, which is really what Avanos is. It was hired, now it's Avanos, and spun out from Kimberly Clark. The value to the board was on a mentoring level. At the board, you could see it. You can see it amongst management. And for his last chairmanship, he certainly didn't pick something that wasn't busy or required a lot of work, because during his tenure, at least that I worked with him, we did 5 M&A transactions. There was a CEO transition, and we divested our S&IP business, which was our supply business. He brought the vision for the long-term vision of having a pure-play medical device business. And always, I think that the thing I'll remember, the conversations were very robust at our board meetings, because it was anticipated that board members would deeply know the business, the P&L, the strategy, and there would be a robust debate, which I think brought management and the board a lot of alignment and got us to the right decision. So I'm just grateful. I had a chance, I went out to visit Ron in Phoenix once for a meeting, just one-to-one. I mentioned to his wife in the kitchen that I felt like I was really fortunate to spend the 2 years, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Ron, I'm going to come to you next, but before I do, I want to double back to John and see if, John, you wanted to share any additions. I love the product, the patient, the partnership. Are there other leadership styles or mantras that Ron, that you would identify with what really were part of his legacy and should be the key takeaways that, others think about applying to their own careers and to their companies?
I think, Ron led by example. I think that was truly not only motivational, but he had extremely high expectations of himself, and he had high expectations of all of those around him, but never higher than those that he took to heart himself. Ron emphasized, and I can remember many times he would say that the value of what I'll call a healthy discussion. Okay, a healthy discussion means that we should have an open, honest culture to debate. We should have an open and honest culture to share facts. And, you know, quite honestly, as a CEO, if it ever came down to an opinion at the end of the day, Ron would share his. But the value of the healthy discussion was to provide differences of opinion. And even though we, in many cases, had a healthy discussion on a strategic or a product development issue, once the decision was made, it was with laser beam focus that we were held accountable to implement that decision, because the healthy discussion was over. You know, we should revisit it if facts change, or we should revisit it if circumstances change. But if we've agreed to do something, you know, this is what we've agreed to do. And now it's about relentless and focused implementation. And Maria mentioned this, Ron believed in people, and he was willing to hold those individuals and organizations accountable to deliver on what they've committed to. And what made that work was Ron's belief in what he called, and we always came to appreciate, ownership behavior. You know, when you have ownership behavior in a company, individuals don't rent their career. They own their career. And as Maria said, they take even accountability for it to be stretched and deliver. And we know that when you're an owner, you don't just participate. You know, you proactively and you deliver on your commitments, because you're more than just a renter of your career. You own it. And you know, Ron had several mantras. I won't go through them all, because some of them involved pigs and lipstick, and I think these the fork law of Indiana. But the one that I hold to heart, the one that I hold to heart is one that you know, I still deliver to my employees, and that is, you know, think and act strategically, deliver your plan, and raise great children. And if you can do all those things, you'll be successful. So.
I'll come back with a little follow-up on that work-life balance in just a minute, but I want to get to Ron. Ron, you know, I think your career is fantastic. Started as a sales rep, you know, in a division that spun out under your leadership, instant global medical device leader. Just, I sense by getting to know you that there probably weren't any fears, but there had to be challenges along the way. And I think the audience would love to hear about any specific challenges and how you overcame those on your way up. And then maybe a second part of the question is if it's even possible to summarize how the industry's changed in your nearly 50 years of your career. It's been an amazing time. And I think that perspective, the group would really take something away from as well.
The most difficult times were product issue times. So if we had a new product, we were having clinical issues with it, and you know, that was a hold your breath. And we had two or three that were really pivotal. When we came with the first stents, we had some issues in France. It so happened one of our John and Maria and I's colleagues, Bev Huss, we happened to have an engineer as the product manager, and sent her to France to meet with the regulatory authorities, with some great regulatory people, and walk them through the solutions and the facts and essentially knowledge, deep knowledge, allowed us to get through that. We had not terribly dissimilar issues on the cardiac rhythm management side, but at least from the CEO standpoint, and it's one reason you kind of reflect back on, you have got to have great talent in the organization. To try to keep those things from happening. And second, as they do have got to have the capability of individuals that have the depth of knowledge to be able to understand and solve those issues. I've kind of preached periodically, especially about leadership. Leadership is not a transferable skill. It is something that requires deep knowledge, and I would say you've got to be in a position at least a couple of years before you know enough in breadth across enough dimensions of your job to be able to do what leadership has to be able to do, and it's anticipate. You have to be able to look forward, second order thinking, and if you can do that in our industry, that may not mean that you could go be a hospital president, because I've always said that two jobs that I could never do. I could transfer some management skills to them, but I just, one couldn't do, wouldn't want to do. One is to run a hospital, and the second is to run a university. And because there are a bunch of independent players, I think, and they end up being responsible to themselves and not responsible to the institution, and that's a difficult format. But in terms of the real challenges, anytime there's a product issue, and when you have the confidence that you've got the people in place that can solve that issue, and they're going to be absolutely honest about it, and they're hugely credible, that's important. Other thing that always concerned me a little, it was a reason to try to stay in touch with as much of the organization as you could. I was always a little concerned that some management was not as aggressively promoting the talent that was in their organization, and didn't see the depth and breadth that talent had, and that was a rare occurrence. But when it pops up, when it happens to you once or twice, then it starts to concern you, and you end up spending more time making sure that you're trying to feel the pulse of the organization on a pretty continuous basis. That and at least early in my career, the troublesome part, I was in the sales organization 3 years, 9 months, and 8 days, and in two different territories in the pharmaceutical business. And so it was like, this is fine, and I understand this is the the marketing resource that's used most aggressively in the pharmaceutical business. And if you want to ever run the company, you better understand how this works. It's a good thing from a personal standpoint. How often can you walk into a place and have everybody boo when you start to sit down with your bag between your legs? But anyway, it's a real growing experience, and I would recommend it to most people. Anyway, and to think about how is it you transition yourself out of that if your management isn't thrilled that you should move on. And so, that worried me it came to my attention, let's say, in the early years, and is when I was cognizant of others within our organization. In terms of how the industry has changed, the industry was very interesting in that it was really very, very customer focused. So companies that were successful, and I always think of Bill Cook and when Bill was alive and running Cook Medical, that the rumor on the street was that if a radiologist could draw it on a napkin, Bill could have it back in their labs the next week, and and was not too thrilled with the whole regulatory hurdles that would require. But this huge focus of the guys that won were the ones that were incredibly responsive to the marketplace. When Lilly got involved and we made our first acquisition, we'd ask questions like, do you have any intellectual property around this? And I would say that we changed the way the industry works, in that people needed to show what was proprietary within their organization. And so intellectual property was one that was easily observable. And to whether it was good or bad, I'm not sure, but it did change the way companies were valued and able to make a determination whether they were able to go forward.
That's great. So Maria, Ron touched on innovation, and clearly that's the hallmark of of what you all did at Guidant. And, you know, I put him on the spot with talking about challenges, which he opened up on, but I thought that you might want to expand on really some of the impact, the positive impact that Ron and Guidant and you all had from a cardiovascular sector perspective, and just the impact on patients' lives.
Sure, and I think it's often said that that's one of the things that is so unique and so magical about being in this industry, which is all of this hard technical work translates into a significant amount of improvement for patients and their families. I believe the quality days have been mentioned as well as an opportunity for the entire employees to really see firsthand and hear from patients and families how the product that they either built or developed or quality tested was actually bringing life back or changing life for the better. I also want to talk a little bit about the customer intimacy and how that connected with innovation. I was a sales rep and I was a marketing person for many, many years of my career. And it was amazing to see how closely we collaborated with R&D at the customer site, at the bedside, to really understand what it took to win in the marketplace with the next technology that we wanted to develop. It was not on, I mean, some of it was on a napkin, but it was on a napkin over a cup of coffee with an interventional cardiologist or an electrophysiologist. I think there were two things that drove us, and I think Ron just mentioned intellectual property. That was one way of winning, and I think the company had just a passion for winning. And the other one was the patient, what it really did for lives of so many out there, whether it is the implantable defibrillator or the successive sets of tools for interventional cardiology that left cardiac surgery behind, waiting for something to do. It was really a true transformation of care that was enabled by technology. And that is a journey that it is hard to be part of in many, many careers. And we were all incredibly fortunate to be part of that. So just tremendous impact, but brought home to really be lived by everyone, and really all the way to senior management, the time with the customer, the time understanding care, the time understanding the patient was a high priority for everyone.
Yeah, Ron, you know, I think that, you know, that your impact is so broad when you think across the industry, and when you think about you're not the first award recipient that was also an AdvaMed chairperson. And I'm sure that was an honor and required a significant time commitment, but it also required, you know, incredible breadth of understanding and appreciation of a wider spectrum of technology across medical device and diagnostics, and the whole ecosystem of stakeholders, even outside the area that you were responsible for in the companies you've run. From these you know, industry-wide leadership roles, can you share some of the things that you learned, including your involvement with the the Health Leadership Council, and what influenced you the most out of those experiences as AdvaMed Chair and on the Leadership Council of Health?
Yes, HLC, the Healthcare Leadership Council, was a little bit ahead of us at AdvaMed. And you know, I chaired that organization, and it was made up of big pharma and also GPOs, group purchase organizations, and there were only like 3 med tech companies, ourselves and J&J, may have been one more, and some biotech companies. It was really put together like 1994 when to try to turn around a legislative process around healthcare, and it was kind of under President Clinton, and Hillary Clinton then was doing this activity, and so there were people that believed in a market-based healthcare delivery system, and it became obvious to me where we at AdvaMed at the time were essentially focused on how do we work with the FDA to make it less cumbersome? Here, the Healthcare Leadership Council was saying, if we don't have the right market-based healthcare system, what we do is just not going to be relevant, and at least it will only be to a much lesser extent. So I took that a bit to AdvaMed, and then you're saying, no, I didn't get in depth in terms of the different technologies, but what I tried to understand is what at the highest level would impact their success. For instance, we were able to get legislation. We initiated Biomaterials Access Assurance Act, which come to find out that the people that made polymers, the people that made circuit boards, they weren't going to sell product to us because of the liability potentially associated with that. Our point was, we are relatively large organizations. We will accept that liability, but we have got to be able to get raw material supplies. We've got to be able to get the polymers. We've got to get the ICs. We've got to take them off the hook, or this is not going to happen. Okay, and so anyway, that was broad. That was across lots of industries. So lots of people were affected. So we had a lot of support on that. Another thing that we also did is at the time, the government had set up this transatlantic business dialogue. So then we were a representative for the healthcare, for medical technology, or I was for about 3 or 4 years. We would meet in Europe and the United States and talk about how we can become more efficient in our individual sectors. My position always was that the regulatory bodies in for instance, Germany, should be able to audit the companies in Germany to FDA specs, if it was FDA that was going to be prevalent, instead of us needing to try to have the FDA come over and do that. So we had these mutual recognition agreements, and what it required is it took the personality out of it. It said, here are the regulations, and if Germans don't care any less about their patients than we in the U.S. care about ours, and they can follow the FDA's regulation. And so they became a level of efficiency and a level of openness, and little, I guess, less arbitrary. But that would be significant across the industry, not just specifically. And CLIA regs were different than some of the FDA regulations. And then during that time period, reimbursement payment raised its head, and it was something that the organization had really not focused on, but hugely important. And then for those number of us were pushing to say, we really need to integrate those two, which also made people very nervous. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to go do clinical trials, if you don't gain the economic data at the same time to be able to make your case, then it's going to be very difficult for you to either get approval from a reimbursement standpoint, or get market penetration, because people are hesitant just to kind of raise the price of the ticket.
Joe, I'm gonna play off that. So Ron's involvement, Healthcare Leadership Council, AdvaMed Chair, CEO of a MedTech innovator, very similar from my perspective. You've got this balance issue as well. You're an AdvaMed board member, CEO, you're on your board. How's a CEO executive manage the balance of this personal, company, and the civic life?
Look, I think you take a lesson from Ron. Really want to maybe just turn it back to Ron, for example, as an example. The team on this panel, he could entrust them and go and do these other things. So it first comes, I think, with the team and the focus. The other thing I was going to say about this is I think Ron was ahead of his time on corporate social responsibility, and just a desire to see that it's embedded in a leader to have to reach out to your civic duty, an academic duty, bringing mentors along. Yet he didn't overdo it, but he certainly brought a lot of value in what he did. The other thing I've noticed about Ron and working with him is that he does spend appropriate time, and he should, with his grandchildren. And he knows he has to recharge himself and get energized to go back. But more than anything else, I think it's his passion. And I think all of us as leaders, you have to have a passion for what you're doing and for those charities and for the respective meetings that you're in, but you've got to give yourself time to be prepared, and you have to deliver. So Ron definitely does that.
That's excellent. That's good words of advice for all of us. I know that I can use that better balance and that checkpoint. We're getting the flag that we're, believe it or not, running through our 30 minutes here. So I'm going to go back to Ron, give him the last word here. Ron, you have so many interesting stories that you shared with me and all, but is there any key takeaway that we've not touched on that really the AdvaMed group here can really take and apply back to their own go forward careers, their companies, that you just really want to make sure that they hear loud and clear from you?
Maybe three things. One, as we came out of Eli Lilly, which is a fabulous company with a great culture, et cetera, but it operates somewhat different. It operates differently than medical technology, and a couple of the aspects being that with consensus management at Lilly, you ended up, before you got to a decision, you had 3 meetings before the final meeting with the head of the division. And it seemed to me, and I appreciate them trying to protect the employee, that making sure that everything went smoothly, and so there wasn't much conflict. And we said when we formed our company that we're going to do away with that. We're going to tolerate conflict. We're going to have open kinds of discussions, and we're not going to have 3 meetings before we have the meeting that's the real meeting. And so so we became tolerant of that, as John alluded to. But at the end of the meeting, we would be able to decide what that direction was going to be, and it was not acceptable to go out and to continue to have that discussion about whether that was the right decision. That was going to be the decision. And so, but we encouraged that amount of dialogue and that kind of that conflict. And in terms of another thing that we did differently is that when Lilly would hire someone, such as John Capek, that's got a PhD and an MBA and is an engineer, and Maria Saints that has this great profile, and so they're saying, hey, we're going to put them in this job or that job, and then we're going to give them another job. It's like that. Make sure we took advantage of it. And so our position was that you're going to be successful in whatever job you have before you have the opportunity to go to the next job. And it wasn't trying to be that everybody's got to be the best at everything. What it was is, if you're going to lead, you have to have a track record. And if we didn't cause you to have a track record of success before you took the next job, why would anybody follow you? Why would anybody be interested in where you were trying to get to? Now, when they were successful in that prior job, you'd make sure you celebrated that, so it was intuitively obvious to everybody this person had been successful. They were developing a track record. It probably wasn't the first piece of success that they had, and there's a good reason to listen to what they have to say and to follow them where they're going. And so that part of leadership is hugely important, and a little different than most corporations that want to put you in a training program or this or that, and you have these different experiences. Because you had the experiences, all of a sudden you're the right person for the senior job. We didn't take that approach. We also, and I think Maria mentioned it earlier, we made sure that we wanted our senior management of a certain profile for the next senior management. I wouldn't let them hold me accountable to this, but say, all the next senior management, we want to have had experiences outside their own geographies. All right. So if you were kind of US based, you're going to Europe, you're going to Japan, or you're going to Brazil, or you're going to have an experience outside the country that you essentially were framed in. And so that everybody around the table is going to have done that. And we had prepared that next generation that had all kind of had completed that role. So that was that also was a little different. And again, it comes back. I've gotten into a little bit of trouble with one of the most senior players in the organization. And as she was critical, because I'd always used the analogy that it wasn't an analogy. I'd always restate this saying my father had, and so much so that mother had a needle point hanging on her kitchen wall, and I happened to have the same needle point since she'd passed, but it said, "Don't try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig." And so as Lisa or somebody had said in one of the, that, you know, it was very important to me that everybody that got on the bus had a reasonable amount of talent, okay? And so I hold that in very high regard. Now, I'm all for trying to help everybody kind of be somebody and get through, but the fact of the matter is, if you really want to be great, you better have some great people working for you, because it's not going to come from you, all right? And I took that to heart, and I had a strong appreciation for talent and everything that came with it.
Well, thanks, Ron. Your energy and your passion and your legacy is just incredible. I think that all the panel members, and yourself, really focused around those issues of passion and people and process and clearly innovation. And hopefully the audience here has been able to take several of these things to heart as it relates to applying them for their careers and their companies. I'd just like to congratulate you once again, Ron. I'd like to thank each of our panel members, Maria, Joe, and John, for participating with me today. I thank you for the honor of being able to host this panel. And I thank all of you, the MedTech community, for attending today, and have a blessed day.
Excellent. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ron.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Thanks, John. Great to see you. Yeah.